I want to introduce one of our board members, Vic Thopper, who's also with Cypress Growth Capital, who is instrumental in helping us form Techconnex. With that, Vic, I'll turn it over to you, buddy.
Thank you, Kamal. Could everyone please take a seat so we can be respectful for our upcoming speaker and for me? Hello, everyone. Can you please sit down? Good afternoon. My name is Vic Thopper, and I'm honored to serve on the board of the U.S.-India Chamber and one of the committee members of Techconnex. Is everybody having a good time? Should we do it again next year? Okay, good. I hope you've had a chance to enjoy lunch, recharge, and connect with fellow attendees. We've already had an insightful morning, and I'm excited for what's ahead. Thank you again for joining us as we celebrate our 10th annual Tech Conference and our first year naming it Techconnex. Your presence and participation helped make this event a success. To kick off our afternoon programming, we're excited to welcome our keynote speaker, Curtis Hite, CEO of Improving, an organization widely respected for its leadership in technology and company culture. Curtis, could you please join us on stage? Joining him as moderator is Rebecca Caleb of Bank of America, a dynamic leader and with deep experience in the tech and financial sectors. Please join me in welcoming Curtis and Rebecca Caleb to the stage. Thank you both.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you all hear me? All right. How was lunch? Can I get a clap for good lunch? All right, so great to see each and every one of you here. This is my very first time to be a part of this conference. Great to know this is the 10th year that we're doing this. You are in for a very energizing session. That's what I would warn you. So I'm Becky Caleb. I work for Bank of America. I'm a technology executive leading that cash servicing technology area. But it's not about me today. It's all about our leader here, Curtis Hite. And so before we start, Curtis and I were just talking to understand how we want to have this conversation flow. We would like to understand our audience. So I'm going to start off with 3 questions. How many in the audience are technologists? If you can kindly raise your hands. Okay. How many in the audience are entrepreneurs or startup owners? Okay, last but not least, how many of you are non-technologists? Potentially in your day job, you do not have a technology role. All right, so Curtis, we know our audience now.
We do.
So Curtis is the CEO and chairman of Improving. It's a global software company and a training company, which was founded in 2007. This company has been recognized in numerous journals. Curtis here is going to be elaborating a lot more on the details around that. This company has over 2,000 employees in 19 offices and has a revenue of $280 million. So you're in for a treat, as I said. So we're going to learn more about Curtis's journey, because this doesn't come overnight. Success is never overnight. There is always a journey behind it. So if you don't mind, Curtis, getting us started on your journey, a little more about yourself as well.
All right, thank you so much. The first thing I'd say is providing a little context of who I am and maybe how Improving got started. I have very modest beginnings. My father, he was the head of the household as a teenager because his father had died. We grew up in Southern Virginia and not with a lot of privilege. But the one thing that I really did have is a lot of support from my father and my mother, and that really was the foundation to really much of what I've accomplished with the group and the family that I now have at Improving. And then when we talk about Improving and how it started, sometimes there are great reasons why companies start, and maybe sometimes there aren't the best reasons for companies starting. But this one was rooted, I was gainfully employed at my previous employer. I'd started a company during the .com. I had sold it to a French organization, and they were headquartered in Paris, and I was running their North American operations. And in late 2006, they chose to take a different direction. And if you had asked me just 6 months before if I would ever get into the services business again, I would have said, no way, not getting into services. But in November of 2006, I was let go. And for me, that was an incredible moment of shame and embarrassment. And so I did the very thing that I said I wasn't going to do. I was going back into services. And I did it because I was worried about, good or bad, what the people around me might think. And I turned this negative energy, and I turned it into a very positive force, shaped an organization that was employee-owned, and started this journey for improving. And our first year, we did a little over 2 million. And then today, as you mentioned, we're around 280.
All right. Talk to us a little more about the mergers. You mentioned, it was a small company, but over time, it has grown. And to help us understand how you got there.
Okay, I'll go into our third year. A quick story. It's our foundational story. It happened in 2009, so 3 years after we started the company. But I was invited to a Conscious Capitalism CEO Summit by a banker that was here in North Texas. And this summit really is about celebrating that businesses are a great force of good in this world and can be used for even greater force than they are today. I went there and I sat down between, at the keynote speech, the president of Trader Joe's and one of the operational presidents of Starbucks. And this was, for a $9.8 million company at the time, this is an impressive moment. So I'm very nervous, and I'm sitting next to them, and many of you are technologists here, as I saw. But the keynote speaker started by asking a question. How many of you in the audience have had such a great experience with your technology provider or your technology team that you'll share it with the people next to you? 200 CEOs are in the room. And my hand went up, but only 5 other hands in that room went up. We call this our 6-hand story. 6 hands went up in the room. And the keynote speaker said, that doesn't surprise me. Keynote speaker said, only sales professionals have a worse perception amongst CEOs than technology professionals. And that crushed me for many reasons. One is I'm a sales professional and a technology professional, so you win the first place in the races you don't want to win. But it crushed me because technology is so pervasive that there's no business that isn't enabled by this. And it was then that we really leaned into how are we going to change that perception. And I realized we needed scale. I don't think we're there yet to the scale we need to be. But that's when our journey about starting to find partners all over, at the time, the United States, we joined together with this ambition to start changing the perception in our profession. And so a lot of our scale has grown through just people joining together, cashless mergers, and then eventually we brought on private equity. And we've started to expand first in North America, and then just 6 months ago, we did our global expansion. We've started in Argentina, in Chile, and about a month ago, Pune, India.
That's awesome. So you talked about merging smaller companies even without capital. I know yours is a private company. How do you keep up with, getting more private equity to keep up with the expansion that you're bringing into place?
So we did our first 5 acquisitions with no financial support. We did this on our own, and we did one in Columbus, in Houston, in Minneapolis, and Calgary. And and they were small, and they all had a flaw, which was a good thing because we could fix flaws together as partners. But at some point, we ran into the block that we needed more capital. And when we needed more capital, we brought on our private equity. And despite stories that you may hear, there are some really, really good private equity companies out there that can partner with you versus working against you. And we found one of those. Trinity Hunt Partners has been fantastic. We had a shared equity model. They leaned into that. And since then, we've been able to go from 55 million to 280, and a large amount of that is because we had their backing. And so we were enabled by our private equity. And they did a continuation. We're with them for another round, and we hope to go at least to $1 billion in revenues before we look to our next stage.
That's awesome. I know we were talking earlier, and you talked about a philosophy called conscious capitalism. I know you're very passionate about that. So I'd like for our audience to learn more about what it is and how has that helped you and your company.
Okay, conscious capitalism, it is a philosophy, it is a movement, and it's an organization. And the philosophy I already touched on, it's the fundamental belief that capitalism is good. That capitalism is not only an economic system, but it's a social system built on morally good things. If you think about what capitalism is based on, it's I have a product or a service that somebody else wants, they have a need for it, and we mutually agree with no interference. There's no coercion. It is pure freedom. That's free market capitalism. So it's both a social and an economic system that we can live into. And what they don't want to stop there, though, this organization, what we want to say is, how do we inspire other organizations versus requiring? So you're not going to see us with a checklist that say, you must do this and must do this. It's more, we think these things are beneficial and you can. It's built on 4 pillars: a purpose that goes beyond just making profit, a higher purpose, conscious culture, a stakeholder model, not a shareholder model, and conscious leadership. There's a local chapter that's very, very healthy here, but there's also, it's an international organization started by John Mackey of Whole Foods, Kip Tindall of the Container Store, and many other prolific business leaders.
So just to kind of pull the thread a little more on the conscious capitalism, there's also trust that you mentioned. Trust means everything. So how can you elaborate further on that?
So a year after the Conscious Capitalism CEO Summit, the Six Hands event that our company's familiar with and I shared with you, my partner and I went to a Stephen Covey seminar. And it was on building trust. His book is called The Speed of Trust. And as I sat there, I realized, listening to him, that many of the challenges that the IT industry has are in the 13 trust behaviors that were codified in this book. And it was at that point that we decided to focus on building trust. And if you go out there and search the internet of technology partner companies that try to lead with trust, I bet you it's half of them. But we had to turn what is lip service into actual implementation. And our company today, of our 2,000 employees, 1,100 employees volunteer to participate in what we call trust pods each and every week, discussing these trust behaviors, how we can implement these with our stakeholders, not just our clients, and how we implement them in our own lives. And if you talk about trust for 30 minutes a week and talk about things like listen first, practice accountability, clarify expectations, talking straight. I just talked about this morning, but straight in love, not in humiliation or something like that. Extending trust, righting wrongs, all these behaviors lead to great relationships, and in a service business, that becomes critical. The feedback I get back from the employees most now that participate is, this actually helps me in my home life more than it helps me in my professional, even though it does. And this is a great thing when we can integrate those two. So trust is an integral part. We now are coaching our clients in this. I facilitate workshops that have nothing to do with technology, and we have consultants there that are literally teaching other teams about building trust. And I think a lot of you know that's kind of the core of a high-performance team.
I can say we can all attest that trust is important, not just in professional, but also in personal, in every relationship as well. So definitely something that we can learn from that. Yours is a Dallas-based company. I know we're all here in the Dallas Metroplex. Dallas has seen a lot of changes over the years. How is your company adopting to those changes, and what exactly are you doing differently that is, attracting more talent within your own company as well?
Okay, a few questions there. We're all fortunate, and I think everybody knows, to have businesses that operate and function in Texas. It is a very business-friendly environment. Starting companies here, while not easy, it's certainly more conducive if you're an entrepreneur or even doing business here. So there's a great benefit to being in Texas, and in particularly North Dallas, from that regard. I forget how many headquarters that, let's say, California has lost, half of them coming here to Texas. So the environment itself is changing just based on the growth, and this is a good thing, remembering the roots. When it comes to attracting talent in this market, one of the things that Improving has done is tried to live into our values, but when you state your values as a company, and ours are excellence, dedication, and involvement, and I could go deeply into those, but when you state them, it's not about just practicing those like we practice trust, but those are expectations that we have of our employees. What can your employees expect of you as a company? So we turn that around. And we say that if you want to be an executive at our company, you have to represent the company, and here's your commitment to the employees. We will create a great place to work. And we'll do it through 5 principles: open and honest communication, creating an environment that is positive and fun, creative ways to learn and grow, sharing in the success of the company, and creating lifelong personal and professional relationships. Those 5 things we're going to focus on to create a great place to work. I'm very proud, probably the most proud accomplishment, that we've had more than 100 best places to work. It doesn't mean we're perfect. We're certainly not perfect, but we are a great place to work. We've been named #1 in Texas, #1 in Ohio, and recently on Fortune, in the mid-markets, we were in the top 40, which was good for our first year, but that's an U.S. recognition. So by having our employees know what they can expect of its leadership and executives and clearly stating it, we invite ourselves to be held accountable, and we create a great workplace.
So you named yours was the first #1 company in all of Texas to be named as #1. How is that playing for the parts of the world that you're now starting to kind of explore? And you mentioned at the very beginning, you said we're exploring more into Asia. As a matter of fact, you did an acquisition just this past month, I believe, so congratulations. So how exactly is that kind of helping in your journey, showcasing that you are #1 in a particular state, which is very large, and you kind of compare in terms of mass and everything. So help us understand a little more about that.
First, it gives you some credibility simply when you talk with them, because they can see these recognitions. And that is, if you're a small organization and you haven't applied to some of these, you should try to. Even if you don't make the list, you get feedback on how you can become better. And by the way, get better is a trust behavior of one, because it builds trust if people see you improving. But the other thing that it does is we have a tremendous number of programs already in place that we get to offer these organizations as they come in and partner with us. We have something called PATH, which is a career path program. We have Improving University. We have the Trust Pods that I mentioned, but we also have our chapters of Conscious Capitalism. We also have something called Come Together, where we pick a theme for the month, and the entire company rallies, office by office, around a single theme. So what we have is so much executable culture that they see this, and by the time we've done an acquisition, they've already started leaning into the culture. And maybe the most impressive accomplishment is we've had no failed mergers or acquisitions, and we've done 18 small ones, but we've only had one that was actually a whole lot of work. So this is pretty hard, and I credit that to the culture that we have collectively, not just me, established at improving.
So an interesting topic that everyone wants to talk about is AI. That's the buzzword of the century, or I should say, or right now for this year, it's everything about agentic AI. As your company is both a software consulting firm and a training organization, how is AI playing into your services and everything that you do as a company as well?
What I'm going to say is not going to surprise anybody, but artificial intelligence is here. It's here to stay, and it's coming very, very quickly. But if I were to kind of compare it to a time in the technology history when we really look at demand, in the late 90s, you could say it started in the early 90s or before, but there was a huge shift from functional programming to object programming. And when we established our first business back then, we had people knocking on our door each and every week at the executive level to find out how they were going to do this. In running a business since then for 25 years, there's been nothing like this until AI. And now we're doing executive level workshops 2 to 3 times every single week. And we're not marketing this. This is the demand. Might it be overhyped a little bit at the beginning? Yes. Might we have a little bit of a downturn a little bit after this? Yes, because there'll be waste in some of the investment. But it is here to stay. It is a trend. And if you're not on that bandwagon yet, you must find your way. The good news is, compared to other technology adoptions, it's not as expensive to get your first value out of it. So this is something that small, medium, and large businesses can do.
Yeah, and personally as a technology and a financial services executive, I will tell you, you have to become financially literate as well as AI literate. That's kind of where the world is. In terms of knowing what is around you, it's very, very important. As you said, whatever size of your organization, AI is going to play a vital role. And it could be in a small form, it could be in a large form, it could be in things that you're just interacting on a day-to-day basis on. So it's very, very important from that standpoint. When you look at the world more broader than just North Texas, as you think about just Americas, in terms of what your organization is doing, could you help expand on the services that you offer as well?
Yes, I consider ourselves, we're big. We have a couple thousand employees, so we do modern digital services. Not a lot of legacy work, but we always have to work with legacy systems. And we are a services company. We're not a product company, and we're a digital, so we're software. We're not hardware at the highest level. But if you were to look at our true core competencies, it's about platform engineering, DevOps, custom software application, data, machine learning, artificial intelligence, business analytics, which, while we can separate them, if you understand the nuance, they're all in one big crowd together.
Got it. Also, you are a Texas A&M graduate. Go Aggies.
Yeah.
How many Aggies in the room?
No Aggies?
All right.
All right.
I can see some back there. All right, good. All right, so just want to kind of understand, you've established this organization over the years. You and I were talking about some of the passions that you have, and what do you do to work alongside with the community around you, and the great things that you're doing in the communities around you?
I'll tie this back to conscious capitalism. So we talked about the stakeholder model, and a stakeholder model that's beyond the shareholder model. Well, it's more than just a customer, and it's more than just the employee as well, even though those are key stakeholders. What about your suppliers? What about the industry? What about the communities that we're serving? So we are extremely active and engaged with all of our stakeholders. Our single piece of IP we actually developed, just one, it's about employee engagement and how do we engage our stakeholders, track it so that the recognition gets all the way up. And this comes in all different flavors. If you were to go to our office here in Plano, every single night, I mean every single business night, we have 1 to 2 community groups in our space. We host them. We supply them with their refreshments and stuff. There isn't a single night we don't have people in our space. That's one way to give back to an industry or community. We're not even using the space. Another is sharing in your knowledge, your experience. One of the reasons I'm here, setting that example, trying to at least, and we speak more than 400 times a year in front of 40,000 people, sharing the things we've learned generously, trying to give back. We have something called the Generous Advocate. Now, this is what we do is we have each of the offices put together a pitch. And that pitch is to support a charity that they want to support, not that I want to support or the corporate organization. And we have 18 offices across the globe now, and then we get on as an entire company, and in December, they have 3 minutes to pitch their cause. Anybody that creates a pitch, their cause gets $1,000. And then the winners, it starts escalating more and more, 5th place, 4th place, 3rd, and we give out tens of thousands of dollars to these charities. I think the lessons here is we can have great impacts if we just get a little bit of creativity, using the resources we have. You don't have to be a huge company like Bank of America, which Bank of America can, but you don't have to be something like that to impact the people and the communities around you.
Yeah, I mean, that's something, honestly, I'm very passionate about. We definitely do a lot of volunteering with our communities, and I was mentioning about the financial literacy. We do have something called as a Better Money Habits program. It's a free program that we offer, and I know a lot of my teammates are here in the audience as well. We actually go to the communities and actually provide that for free as an opportunity for the community. One other question I want to add on to that is, since this is a technology conference, are there any STEM initiatives that you're passionate about that, you kind of are saying, hey, these are places where my teams are involved, I'm involved, we're giving back and in this shape and form?
And I thank you for that. There are several areas that we contribute in this way and try to be involved. I was talking with D Magazine, who's here. We support their Emerging Women's Leadership Network. And it's not going to be a shock to anybody here, but the technology industry doesn't have the greatest perception amongst women. Why are only 22% of our employees women? When if you look at elevating lives out of poverty, it's probably the most accessible industry that you can elevate yourself out. So we're very active with women's organizations throughout STEM, Girls Code It, and schools about this. But another event that we do is called Code Launch. The World Championship, I think Shark Tank for apps or something like this, and they put together pitches. We have about 100 companies that do so. There's now a competition in Mexico we put together, one in the US and one in Canada. The winners of those compete in Dallas in October. It is down at Gillies. We probably have 800 to 900 people in attendance. And what we're doing to support STEM is to create innovation here. And you would be surprised, out of the hundreds of people that give pitches and who ends up on stage, we had a 4-person high school team that was on stage from Frisco High School, that was on stage last year pitching their product in this world championship. They didn't get it, but they were there. So what we're trying to do is support communities like this, innovation, and the number of minorities in this, because they don't have another way. We provide coding teams, hacking teams to them to get some product that they can demonstrate on stage. So we're very, very active in these communities as well, especially because it aligns with our purpose. We want to change the perception of the IT profession. And part of that is making women and other minority groups want to join this profession.
I love that, and it warms my heart because I'm the executive sponsor for something to do with women. So it's really something that we have to, you guys can go and applaud because that was a big deal, so go ahead. That's great to hear that. So one thing I'll finish us out is more in the context of, giving back and what you've done with the communities around you, but you also have some personal passions that I learned about online, which seems to be a coin collection.
Oh boy, she's done her research a little bit,
yes.
So that's funny. Okay.
So help us understand more about your coin collection. I learned about like a 2,000 old mite that you have, and other things that are from the, I think, 16th or 17th century. So please explain to us a little more about that.
I try to limit my hobbies, my passions, and then go deeply into whatever they might be. And coin collecting is something that started with my grandfather. It could have been him just trying to keep me busy when I went to his house, and he would collect pennies. And then I would sit for hours going through pennies trying to find a rare penny. And I mean hours, 6, 7 hours at a time. But it was early on that I just enjoyed this. I enjoy history. I worked for a short period of time doing archaeology and underwater archaeology, so this aligned with my history passion. But over the years, I've acquired collections from just colleagues and workers that know I have a passion about it. I keep the history of the collection itself, so every coin that I have, I actually documented in spreadsheets, and I will know some of our employees have given me their collections. I'll be like, this is the Woodward collection. That's part of the Hite collection. And so I take great pride in, and I allow them to have their own history. I've accumulated probably 250,000 coins, and in the home I'm building, I have a small 10 by 10 room that's just for coins.
Wow.
It's not, I'm looking forward to that. My house isn't built yet though.
Yeah, so any exotic ones you want to mention?
Any what?
Exotic collection?
My exotics, like in the coins, or? I do. I have a whole box of coins that are exotic. You mentioned the widow mites that are over 2,000 years old. In the Christian tradition, these are the ones that the widow that offered up, and that's why they're called widow mites. But I have some Spanish doubloons from the 1600s that were pirate coins per se. So I have a whole lot of interesting coins, and I like to show them when people come over to the house. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
All right. I'd like to open it up to our audience if you have any questions to ask Curtis. If you would like to ask a question, please raise your hand. There you go. Come on over.
A mic is coming behind you.
Yeah, I was wondering, should I invade the stage? There's a mic behind you.
There we go.
Very good. So thank you so much. It was amazing and inspiring to hear your overview of how improving has grown, especially of your international expansion. If you don't mind, could you go a little bit further in depth on how a homegrown Dallas-based company would think about expanding internationally? Like, what factors are the most important? Which geographies are interesting to you right now? I know you're in quite a few. What does the next step look like, and why?
All right, Becca, can you repeat this? So a little bit, if you don't know me, I'm 65% deaf, and sometimes in situations like this, I can't read your lips.
Sure.
And so I don't know what you just asked. And it's a little embarrassing, but I know I shouldn't be, but I now have to ask you.
No worries. The question is, being a Dallas-based company, how have you expanded into the different locations or more going globally, basically, from being a smaller Dallas-based organization many years ago to where you are right now? So how has that expansion kind of grown from being a small Dallas-based company to now being a global company?
Yeah,
Did I get that right?
Just think about which countries and why.
Which countries and why?
Okay, which countries and why? And then I'll also talk. So initially, what we were running into and services in the United States provided by U.S. professionals can tend to be more expensive, right? And it's a good thing. There's a lot of benefits to it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we were having a large number of clients that were coming to us that needed a more an alternative costing model, right? Now there's struggles when it becomes a little bit more remote. That started to get blurred a little bit with COVID, but that is why we actually expanded to Mexico. And it had some of the advantages of having a lower cost alternative with some complexities because of the remoteness, but same time zone, easy access and things like that, and we very quickly then established there. Canada is another commercial market, and therefore we're looking access to a big commercial market. The next big commercial market's Europe, which is in our 10-year plan. We haven't expanded there. Now when it comes to, and that was the same strategy now that we tested it out with Mexico, why we're expanding into South America. Very similar, all the Latin America, near shore, very similar way to run models. We then had even more clients that wanted some of the benefits of offshore models. And we had one very big investor, and one of the investors provided a couple $100 million plus into the investment of improving, and they wanted us to have an India presence. And when people invest money in you, you oblige, and you happily oblige and say, we'll do that. And that's a good reason, I'm not gonna say. Now, it's super exciting because they have really a deep expertise in native cloud technologies and Kubernetes, which expanded our own, but we're looking to expand that very quickly now. One thing I want to add that's not a direct question, but it's very important. At Improving, I mentioned the value of involvement. I believe that our success over the years has been a consequence of the collective involvement of everybody at the company, and I mean everybody. And these are the partners that we're with, these are, the partners we're bringing on. And one thing that I've learned is that I don't have to come up with all the good ideas. In fact, it's arrogant to think I would be the source of all the good ideas. But my power, my effectiveness is being able to identify on the good ideas that we can. And so I want to encourage that for everybody to remember that you are part of a team. And yes, it doesn't matter where you are contributing to the overall success of the client, of the company. And you do make a difference, and I fundamentally believe this. So when bringing on partners, my favorite part is finding their ideas that they did that we can take into our company and expand them. And I will tell you, so many of these cultural programs that I talked about, maybe one of them came from the original Improving. All the others are from the partners we brought on.
Well, thank you. And I think, just based on where I'm thinking about this, there might be so many startups in the room that are already kind of thinking in their minds, hey, how can I partner with Improving in the future, So definitely reach out, I guess, right? So, but I really want to take this opportunity to thank you for joining us, and thank you to the Chamber for having us, as well as each and every one of you for spending your afternoon with us. So if you don't mind, let's give a round of applause for Curtis Hite. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Becky. Thanks again, Curtis.